This is exactly the break that we've been waiting for, as a brand new report has dropped surrounding Rob Pelinka's next move and one particular player that not only has fans fired up, but has big implications going forward. We're going to break down exactly what this report is and discuss who the player is, as well as a few other interesting updates, including one surrounding DeAndre Ayton you'll want to stay tuned to the end for. But before you can do it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You guys have been absolutely fantastic with the support, and it means the world to myself. So make sure to continue hitting that subscribe button if you're enjoying the daily Lakers content, folks. A lot to go over today, and there's obviously a lot of talks about the Lakers' next move, but when that's going to happen, whether that be in the next couple weeks, maybe towards the end of the offseason. However, a new report has dropped here, and it's a very interesting player and one that a lot of fans are familiar with. He is a former Laker. You can see this here. An article dropped with some reports. We're also diving into one from Brett Siegel as well. Basically, we know how last season ended. It was unfortunate, and how so far this offseason they got DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia, Marcus Smart. But you can see here at the bottom, there's still time. One trade pitch from Jacob Root of Silver Screen and Roll could add both sentiment and substance by bringing in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope back to Los Angeles. And this is interesting because there's been multiple reports from more notable reporters than Jacob Root that we'll dive into in a minute. But I want to dive into this here, and you can see this here. Lakers could reunite with Caldwell Pope, and the trade proposal here is Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber to Memphis in exchange for Caldwell Pope. The veteran 3-and-D guard was a key part of the Lakers championship bubble, and obviously has bounced around 4 teams. Now, the interesting part about this deal is, of course, what you're going to have to give up, and in this case, it's just salary filler. But I'm going to focus more so on the actual player getting back rather than the actual package that is proposed. But the reasoning here is, you can see here, Lakers fans have seen how well KCP plays next to stars firsthand. Even if his game has dropped off, he's still a 3-and-D wing. You can never have too many of those. It's a far more useful way for the Lakers to spend their money than on Vincent and Maxi Kleber. And from the Grizzlies' perspective, KCP holds a player option for next season, and swapping him for 2 expiring contracts could save long-term money. And this is what's interesting, because I think at this point in time, the Lakers clearly have done their due diligence in the trade market. Haven't seen anything necessarily that they like yet. But this could end up being a win-win trade for both sides. And obviously, you look at it from the perspective of the Memphis Grizzlies, and KCP does have a fairly expensive player option. And if they want to save money and they don't think KCP is going to have a bounce-back year and that he's not a part of their plans, they get 2 expirings that they could either A, just let expire at the end of the year, next upcoming season, of course, and then just let it go. Or you could use those as trade chips at the trade deadline and then go from there. But it's a very unique and interesting proposal, because you're at the point now where I think he fits really well with the Lakers. Now, he's had some really bad years. He signed with the Magic, was really, really good. And we saw him with the Lakers. He had some very good, solid seasons. If you have KCP off the bench, he can play really solid defense and can shoot the ball really well. He would actually be someone that fits this team really well. And you basically replacing him with Gabe Vincent, who averaged 6.4 points a game last year and has $11.5 million in salary. They mentioned as well Jared Vanderbilt. I think the Lakers at this point hold on to Vando just because of his defensive upside, and obviously the Lakers at this juncture don't have a ton of defensive versatility outside of Marcus Smart and a couple others. But he could always be throwing packages, and maybe if that's what it takes to get a deal done, Rob Pelinka considers it. But Caldwell Pope would boost. I think would just boost his team in a very good way, and he hasn't really been talked about a lot, as of late necessarily. However, you look at a bunch of different things here. I mean, you look at the depth chart, and their starting lineup will probably remain the same. You're not going to put KCP in the starting lineup. I think he's more so, at this point of his career, at least, a bench player. Let's assume it's Luka, Reaves. I think it's probably going to be Luka, Reaves, Smart, LeBron, Ayton, with Rui Hachimura off the bench. If you have a bench of Hachimura, KCP, and Jake LaRavia, that's a very solid backcourt, and then of course the front court as well with Jackson Hayes and Jake LaRavia and things like that. I think you then turn yourself into a much deeper team, and you're basically just replacing players that you're probably not going to use anyway. Now, Maxi Kleber could have a bounce back here, all these things, and we think back to this becomes even more relevant because you think back to less than a month ago, a few weeks ago here, from Brett Siegel, very notable reporter. He said the Lakers have discussed KCP and Dante DiVincenzo as potential trade targets. KCP talks happened after he was included in the Bay and Orlando trade. Minnesota immediately turned down DiVincenzo talks. Now, keep in mind that this report was, it's pretty important because it means they've had talks in the past about KCP, and that's what makes the newer report and the newer, things start to make a bit more sense, because it could be the break you're waiting for, in the sense of, if you're the Grizzlies, you don't want to, have a guy who's going to accept the player. Let's say KCP has a horrible year next year, and then you're on the hook for his player option. The Lakers would obviously have to keep that in mind as well, but I don't think that's as big of a deal, for the Lakers, and I think that they can figure out a way to make KCP work, and I also think he'd do a lot better alongside a guy like Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and obviously others. I mean, you look at his stats, he's still serviceable, and that's the funny thing about this. Last year, 8.7 points per game in 77 games. Obviously, he had a good year last year or Denver and then Washington, all these different things. 10 points a game in 2023. Really good with Denver for a while. Signed with the Orlando Magic. It's an interesting player. And at the end of the day, he played 4 years with the Lakers and had some of his better seasons with the Lakers. He had a Defensive Player of the Year nomination in his last year with the Lakers. Granted, he finished 11th, but he still was pretty good. And I said earlier that he played with Orlando in his good years. I meant to say, obviously, Denver for a couple of years was his really good years, and one in Washington as well before signing with Orlando, of course, a couple of years ago. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is a very unique player and one that I think fits pretty well. And clearly, they've had talks about it. Obviously, they've had talks about Dante DiVincenzo as well. And some rumors are floating. The trade market might be a bit slower than usual this offseason, which we've seen beyond the initial big rush. It's been pretty slow over the past few weeks, and that's going to continue to happen. But at the end of the day, let me know down below, do you want to see the Lakers go out and get former Laker Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? And also, you can see here, he's played with LeBron before, so he has familiarity with LeBron James. He obviously doesn't have familiarity with Luka Doncic and some of the other guys, but he played with that AD and LeBron James team. So it makes he is a very, very efficient three-point shooter as well. Obviously dropped off a little bit last year, and that's the big, his calling card is 3-and-D. And obviously, if you could add another defender, having an elite three-point shooter, assuming he bounce back a little bit, and a really good defender, I think it makes a ton of sense for the Los Angeles Lakers here. And could be a big break if the Grizzlies end up not wanting to, keep him because of the fear of the player option, him opting in, and things like that. It could be the break that the Lakers have been waiting for. And clearly, Rob Pelinka has been super patient so far this offseason with actually going out and making moves. So they're probably going to wait for the right move and make sure that it hits. But let me know down below, do you want to see him, or do you think the trade is... Again, would you also throw in a second-round pick? Like, if it takes Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, and a second, is that something you do, or only for the swap? Now, I want to dive into a couple other things as well here. And a new, chart has dropped from B-Ball Index, and it's an anchor bigs in rim protection, X-perimeter, ISO defense. So basically just showing you who's good at ISO defense, who's good at rim protection, all these different things. You can see the players farther to the right are better at on-ball defense, and the players up above are better at rim protection. So this is where things are, interesting, because you can see here, Jackson Hayes, I believe it is, in the middle, and you see DeAndre Ayton on the towards the top right. You can see in the top left, Walker Kessler, and I wanted to bring this up because obviously last year a big sticking point was the paint defense, especially once AD left. It was obviously the big conversation point, especially after the Mark Williams trade got rescinded. I think the Lakers are in a pretty good spot, and obviously Ayton's a decent, randomly a decent on-ball defender for a big man. Not quite as good rim protection wise, but hopefully he can be. He's still okay. The advanced metrics don't look too bad on Ayton, and obviously have a middle of the pack guy in Jackson Hayes. But what could have been with Walker Kessler if he had become fully available, because he is one of the best, if not the best, rim protecting big in the NBA, and that's what the Lakers were missing last year and are missing a little bit in this upcoming year. But let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this. Do you want to see former Laker return to LA? It's gonna be very interesting. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way.